In a quiet town where grease-stained hands and broken dreams go hand in hand, a humble mechanic named Liam Carter lives a life of routine and quiet resilience. But everything changes one fateful night when he pulls a mysterious woman from a flaming wreck on a deserted highway. She has no memory, no name, just haunting flashes of boardrooms, betrayal, and danger. As the small town rallies around her and Liam offers her shelter, an unexpected bond blossoms between them, tender, real, and healing. What Liam doesn't know is that the woman he rescued is Cassandra Wolfe, a billionaire CEO who vanished under suspicious circumstances. Her crash wasn't an accident, it was a hit, orchestrated by someone who wanted her dead. As she pieces her identity back together and faces enemies hiding behind polished smiles, Cassandra must choose between the ruthless corporate empire she built and the honest, quiet life she never knew she needed. But the truth has a price, and when the worlds of wealth and grit collide, only one thing will survive the fire: love. This is a story of fate, redemption, and two souls from opposite worlds, proving that sometimes the most powerful rescue is finding someone who sees your worth when you've lost everything. The air was thick with smoke and gasoline. A thunderous explosion echoed through the rolling hills outside the small town of Fairhaven, shattering the quiet night like glass. A lone truck's headlights bounced down the winding road, catching glimpses of scorched asphalt and the skeletal silhouette of a burning car twisted around a tree. Liam Carter slammed on the brakes. Tires screeched as the old pickup skidded to a stop. Without hesitation, Liam grabbed the fire extinguisher from behind his seat and vaulted out. His boots crunched on broken glass as he sprinted toward the inferno. Flames danced violently from the hood, licking at the night sky like a beast unchained. The engine hissed, metal warped, and the unmistakable scent of burning oil filled his nostrils. There was someone inside. "Hang on!" he shouted, barely audible over the roar of the flames. Through the cracked windshield, he saw her, slumped over the steering wheel, motionless, her face hidden by her long, dark hair. The door was jammed. Liam yanked at it with all the strength his wiry frame could muster, gritting his teeth as the metal resisted. Flames curled around the undercarriage. "Come on, come on!" With a guttural yell, the door gave way, shrieking open as a fireball erupted from beneath the car. Liam threw up his arms, shielding her with his body as debris rained down. Time slowed. The flames blurred into streaks of orange and red. He reached in, coughing hard, and unbuckled her seatbelt. Her body was limp but warm, still alive. Carefully, he lifted her into his arms and stumbled back, coughing, shielding her face from the smoke. Behind them, the car belched one final explosion, sending a burst of fire into the trees. By the time he got her to the truck, Liam's sleeves were scorched and his skin blistered with heat. He laid her gently across the back seat, grabbed a water bottle and splashed some on her face. Come on, stay with me," he muttered, brushing hair from her forehead. No ID, no phone, nothing. She was dressed in elegant, now singed business attire, odd for this part of the countryside. Her necklace, a sleek silver chain with a symbol he didn't recognize, gleamed faintly in the moonlight. Whoever she was, she didn't belong out here. Liam pulled out his phone and called 911. "There's been an accident. One car, fully engulfed. Woman's alive but unconscious. Mile marker 47 off Ridge Road." "Are you injured?" the dispatcher asked. "Number she needs help fast." Sirens would take at least 20 minutes out here. Liam sat beside her in the truck, keeping the window cracked and the engine running for warmth. He glanced at her, smudged with soot, lips pale but breathing. "Who are you?" The woman stirred faintly, murmuring something unintelligible. Her hand twitched, then fell still. Liam exhaled, long and low. This wasn't just a wreck. Something about it didn't feel right. The precision of the crash, the lack of skid marks. It looked deliberate, but why? And who would want to hurt someone like her? The first responder lights finally appeared in the distance, bouncing red and blue through the trees. Relief washed over Liam, but it came with a quiet dread. He had a feeling this was only the beginning. As paramedics loaded her into the ambulance, one turned to him. "She's lucky you got there when you did," the medic said. "Another minute, she'd be gone." Liam nodded, his eyes fixed on the back doors as they closed. "Yeah," he said quietly, "lucky." But even as the ambulance pulled away and disappeared down the hill, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that fate had just set something in motion, something much bigger than either of them could see yet. He turned back toward the smoldering wreck. The flames had finally died, leaving behind only scorched earth and the metal husk of what once was. But in that moment, standing alone in the smoke and silence, Liam Carter had no idea that the woman he'd just pulled from the fire wasn't just a stranger in distress. She was one of the most powerful women in the country, and someone wanted her dead. The scent of antiseptic and burnt fabric hung in the air. Liam stood awkwardly at the edge of the hospital room, watching the woman he'd pulled from the fire breathe steadily, her chest rising and falling beneath a soft, white blanket. Her face, cleaned and bandaged, looked peaceful now, but there was something haunted in her stillness. She hadn't woken since the crash. The nurse tapped her clipboard, glanced at him. "You said you don't know her name." He shook his head. "No wallet, no phone, nothing. She was dressed like she walked out of a Wall Street meeting, but had no business being out near Ridge Road that time of night." "She's lucky you found her," the nurse said, softening. "We'll log her as Jane Doe for now. Doctor says she may have a concussion. It might take a while before memory comes back, if it does." Liam nodded, but something about that didn't sit right. She hadn't just forgotten who she was. She'd been erased. He returned the next morning with a small paper bag. Inside was a travel toothbrush, a hairbrush, and a flannel shirt, one of his least grimy ones. He set them on the side table, embarrassed by how little he could offer. When she finally opened her eyes, Liam was the first thing she saw. He froze. "Hey there." She blinked slowly. Her voice was dry, cracked. "Where am I?" "Hospital. You were in a car accident. Do you remember anything?" A long pause. She tried to sit up and winced. "No," she whispered. "Nothing. My head, it's all blank." He moved closer. "Don't push it. You've been out for 2 days. They're calling you Jane Doe until we can figure out who you are." She glanced at the IV in her arm, the bandages on her hands, then looked up at him. "You saved me?" Liam gave a sheepish shrug. "Wasn't about to let you roast in there." Despite her pain, she smiled faintly. "Thank you." He nodded. "Name's Liam Carter. I run a garage down near Fairhaven. Just happened to be on the road that night." "Liam," she repeated slowly, as if testing the sound. "And I'm no one." He shook his head. "Nah, Someone's going to be looking for you. We'll figure it out. But deep inside, Liam already sensed what she feared. Someone had tried very hard to make sure no one would find her. The third day brought sunshine through the hospital windows and a flood of curious locals through the waiting room. Word had gotten around about Liam's rescue, the town's hero mechanic pulling a mystery woman from a flaming car on the old ridge. People brought flowers, cards. One elderly woman knitted her scarf, just in case she got chilly. The local pastor even stopped by to offer a prayer, but Jane remained overwhelmed and silent through most of it, shrinking further into her hospital bed with each well-meaning visitor. After they left, Liam sat by her bedside again. "You okay?" "I feel like I'm living someone else's life," she said. "None of this feels real." "I get that," he said. "Happened to me once, after my dad died. Whole world just flipped upside down. Took me a while to stand straight again." She looked at him, eyes softening. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Just saying, sometimes you don't need all the answers right away. You just need a safe place to land." She hesitated, then asked, "What happens now? I mean, when will they discharge me?" "I've got a spare room above the garage," Liam offered. "It's not much, but it's quiet. You can stay there until you get your bearings." Her eyes widened. "You don't even know me." He smiled. "Well, I do know you didn't scream or flinch when I picked you up out of a burning car, and you haven't complained once since waking up here. That's more than I can say for half the folks in town." She laughed softly, a sound that surprised even her. "All right," she said, "just for a few days." "You got it, Jane Doe?" She looked out the window, watching a bird land on the sill. "Maybe I'll give myself a new name," she murmured. "Like what?" "I don't know yet. Something stronger. Someone different." Outside, life in Fairhaven went on like nothing had changed. But in room 206, a new chapter had just begun, and Liam didn't know it yet, but by offering her a place to stay, he'd just invited a storm into his quiet little world. The room above Liam's garage was small but cozy, polished wood floors, a twin bed, and a dresser whose drawers stuck slightly when pulled too hard. The walls bore decades of grease-smudged history, and the air smelled faintly of motor oil. But to Jane, it felt like a castle. She stood in front of the mirror trying to recognize the woman staring back. Bandages peeked from beneath the collar of Liam's flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up awkwardly. Her hair, once silky, was tangled and uneven where fire had signed the ends. She brushed a finger across her cheek, looking for something, anything familiar. Nothing came. Liam had set out a simple breakfast downstairs, eggs, toast, and strong black coffee. He glanced up as she descended the stairs carefully. "Mornin', sunshine. You sleep okay?" She nodded. "Thanks again for all of this." "Don't mention it. Garage is closed today, but I gotta do some inventory. You're welcome to hang out or walk into town if you feel up to it." "I might walk," she said softly. "Maybe something will jog my memory." Fairhaven was a far cry from wherever Jane had come from. She knew that instinctively. People waved from porches, called greetings across the street. The local bakery gave her a free cinnamon roll just because. And yet, the familiarity she hoped for never came. Instead, she felt an ache, not in her head, but in her chest, a sense that she had lost more than her memories, that something was missing, broken, stolen, By the time she returned to the garage, Liam was in the middle of organizing tools. She watched him for a long moment, focused, hands confident, movements efficient. "Liam," she said quietly, "what if I don't remember who I am? What if I never find out?" He looked up, wiping his hands on a rag. "Then you start fresh. Name yourself. Choose what matters. Doesn't have to be complicated." She hesitated. "Isn't that dangerous? Letting go of your past?" He met her gaze steadily. "Sometimes it's the only way to survive it." That night, as Jane lay in the small bed above the garage, a dream stirred, a flash of metal, a voice shouting, an office with floor-to-ceiling windows, and fire. Always fire. She woke up gasping, clutching her chest. In the distance, a coyote howled. By the end of the week, everyone in Fairhaven knew about Jane Doe. At Rosa's diner, old men passed their coffee refills with murmured theories. "She's a spy," one whispered. "Witness protection," another said. A third claimed he saw her face on a missing heiress poster 5 years ago. The church ladies brought casseroles. Teens asked for selfies. Some of it was curiosity, but much of it was genuine kindness. Fairhaven didn't get many outsiders, let alone ones who showed up in flaming wrecks. Jane, for her part, was overwhelmed. "I feel like a circus act," she muttered one afternoon, sipping lemonade on the garage steps. Liam chuckled. "This town doesn't get much excitement. You're like a UFO sighting." "Well, at least I'm housebroken." He laughed, really laughed, and for a moment her unease melted away. Despite the attention, Jane found peace in the rhythms of the garage. She helped clean tools, swept floors, and eventually started handing Liam wrenches while he worked. He was patient with her, even when she asked the difference between a socket wrench and a torque wrench for the third time. One day she found an old Polaroid in the garage's office drawer. It showed a younger Liam with his father, both covered in grease, grinning proudly in front of the same red Mustang that now sat half restored in the corner. "He taught you all this?" she asked. "Everything I know," Liam said. "Died 5 years ago. Heart gave out in the middle of a rebuild. I almost shut the place down, but I couldn't let it go." She looked at him with something close to awe. "You stayed. You held on." He shrugged. Didn't know what else to do. That night, as she stood by the window watching fireflies blink in the dusk, Jane asked herself a hard question. Had she ever fought that hard to hold on to anything? And if not, who had she really been? In the garage below, Liam hummed to the radio as he worked. Outside, the town buzzed with theories and rumors. But in that quiet space between old wounds and new beginnings, something unexpected was taking root. Not memory, but connection, and maybe, just maybe, healing. Liam had never been one for small talk. He lived by actions, not words. But with Jane, conversations came easy. Gentle questions over coffee, quiet observations while working, shared jokes that made her laugh, even when her heart still felt like a puzzle missing half its pieces. Each day brought something new, helping Liam with oil changes, learning how to replace a spark plug, even attempting to paint a garage sign. Her lettering was crooked, but Liam declared it perfect and hung it anyway. "I think I've got grease in my soul now," she said one afternoon, holding up her black-streaked hands. Liam smirked. "Means you're doing it right." Evenings were their favorite, sitting on the roof of the garage, sipping sweet tea under the stars. Jane found herself talking about dreams she didn't remember having, fears she couldn't place. Liam listened, always steady, always present. "Have you ever thought about leaving this place?" she asked him once. "Yeah," he said after a pause, "but leaving and belonging ain't always the same thing. This town's in my blood. And if you didn't belong anywhere, then you build a place with the people who matter." She looked at him then, his face bathed in golden dusk. "That's what I'm afraid of, that I didn't matter to anyone, that no one's looking for me because no one cares." Liam reached over, placing a grease-stained hand over hers. "They should, and if they don't, that's on them, not you." For the first time since the crash, she didn't feel invisible. With Liam, she wasn't just Jane Doe. She was someone. But as the days warmed and their hearts opened, shadows crept at the edges of their peace. Each moment of joy was chased by an echo, a past not gone but watching. Someone was still out there, and the silence wouldn't last forever. It started with a purse, or rather what was left of one, a scorched leather clutch that Jane found buried in a box of hospital belongings she'd nearly forgotten. It smelled faintly of smoke and antiseptic. The zipper was melted shut in one spot, but with Liam's help, they managed to force it open. Inside were charred remnants of business cards, a crushed lipstick tube, and a small, surprisingly undamaged flash drive. Liam held it up. "This survived the fire." Jane took it, turning it over slowly. "It must have been inside the lining." They plugged it into the computer in Liam's office, the screen blinking to life. A folder popped open, simple, titled Wolf Corp. Private. Jane stared at the name. Wolf? Sound familiar? She closed her eyes, searching for anything. A flash, a boardroom, people seated around a long table. She was standing at the head, her voice calm but commanding. "I think I worked there," she whispered, "or ran it. I don't know how I know that, but I do." The folder contained documents, corporate contracts, executive memos, and internal reports, and buried deep within a file marked Legal, Last Will, Confidential. Jane opened it with trembling fingers. It was a scanned will, her will, signed by Cassandra Wolf. Her hands went cold. "That's me," she said. "That's my name." Liam leaned in, quiet. "You're Cassandra Wolf?" She nodded slowly, eyes wide with the weight of the truth. "I'm not just someone from the city. I'm a billionaire." Liam stepped back slightly, stunned. Cassandra, Jane, clutched the flash drive tightly. "Someone wanted me gone. This wasn't an accident. That crash. Someone tried to kill me." Silence filled the room. The hum of the computer felt deafening. Liam finally spoke, voice low. "Then you're not just running from your past. You're hiding from it." Cassandra looked up at him, eyes blazing with fear and something harder, resolve. "Not anymore." It happened just after midnight. Liam had gone to bed hours earlier, the garage locked up tight, the town asleep under a moonless sky. Upstairs, Cassandra was dreaming again, visions of glass towers, voices arguing, papers with her name on them, and then fire, always fire. A sudden crack woke her, not thunder, something sharp, wood splintering. She sat up, heart thudding, her bare feet touched the floor just as she heard the front door creak open downstairs. A floorboard groaned, soft but deliberate. Someone was inside. She reached for her phone, but it was downstairs in the garage office. Her mind raced. Liam. I have to get to Liam. She crept to the stairs, pausing as a faint beam of light flickered across the workshop. A flashlight, moving slowly, and then a shape. A man in dark clothes, face hidden beneath a cap, rifling through the garage, not stealing, searching, her files, the flash drive. She turned back toward Liam's room, but knocked over a small metal canister. It clanged, bounced down the stairs. The man froze, then bolted. Liam burst out of his room in seconds, shotgun in hand, eyes wild. Jane, she pointed. He ran, through the side door. He was looking for something. They chased the shadow into the night, but he was gone, swallowed by trees and silence. Later, the police came, took notes, asked questions. No sign of forced entry, the officer said. Could be a drifter, but they both knew it wasn't. Cassandra gripped Liam's arm. They found me. His jaw tightened. Not for long. The next day, he installed a new lock on the garage and wired a motion sensor light out back. But the damage was already done. Their peace was over. The shadows had followed her home. Across the country, on the 48th floor of Wolf Tower in downtown Manhattan, a war was brewing. The boardroom was cold, clinical, steel, glass, and nerves stretched thin. At the head of the table sat Richard Wolf, Cassandra's cousin and acting CEO. He wore a navy suit and a fox-like smile, sipping espresso like it was blood. Still no word, the company's general counsel said. She's been declared legally missing. Next of kin has full control. Richard tapped his fingers together. Excellent. Then we proceed. Sir, with all due respect, the CFO interrupted. If she turns up alive, this entire transition could be... She won't. The room went silent. One director leaned forward. You're sure? Richard gave a slow, measured smile. I've been thorough. But even as he spoke, a security guard entered with a tablet. Sir, you need to see this. The tablet displayed a grainy news article from a small-town outlet. A heroic mechanic named Liam Carter had saved a woman from a car crash. No name given, no photos. But the sketch, the resemblance, was uncanny. Richard's smile faltered. He stood slowly, gripping the table. Where is Fairhaven? Upstate, 2 hours out. Send someone quietly, we need to confirm. And if it is her? Richard's eyes narrowed. Then we make sure she disappears. For good this time. Back in Fairhaven, Cassandra stared out the window of the garage office, watching storm clouds gather on the horizon. She didn't know it yet, but the empire she'd built, the one that betrayed her, was closing in. And this time, it wasn't fire that would destroy her. It was family. The article was buried in the back of the Fairhaven Gazette, tucked between an ad for a bake sale and a story about a local cow giving birth to triplets. Just a few short paragraphs. Mechanic saves woman from fiery crash on Ridge Road. No name, no photo, but enough. By the next morning, the article had gone viral, shared on niche forums and curiosity-driven news aggregators. Billionaire watchdogs picked it up, citing Cassandra Wolf's mysterious disappearance and the uncanny resemblance to the Jane Doe described in the piece. A photo surfaced, taken by a teen who'd visited the garage earlier in the week, asking for a selfie with the mystery lady. Cassandra's face, partially obscured by a cap, was unmistakable to those who knew what to look for. In Manhattan, Richard Wolff stared at the image with a venomous glare. "Find out who that mechanic is," he snapped to his aide. "I want everything, bank records, associates, blood type if you have to." He was already thinking ahead. If Cassandra came back, his seat at the top would vanish. Worse, she'd know everything about the fake will, the embezzlement, the board manipulation. He'd built his power on her silence. He couldn't afford her voice. Back in Fairhaven, Liam was tightening the bolts on a customer's axle when a sleek black SUV pulled up outside the garage. It didn't belong. Clean, polished city plates. Two men in suits stepped out. They didn't smile. "Can I help you?" Liam asked, wiping his hands. "We're looking for a woman," one said, pulling out a photo of Cassandra. Clearly corporate, clearly old. "She may be in danger." Liam's eyes narrowed. "Don't know her." The second man smirked. "You sure about that?" Before Liam could answer, Jane stepped outside, holding a clipboard, and froze. The moment was electric. All four knew what was happening. Liam stepped between her and the men. "Garages closed," he said flatly. The suits didn't argue. They slid back into the SUV and drove off. But the message was clear. They knew they were watching. And the quiet protection of Fairhaven was no longer enough. That night, Cassandra and Liam sat at the small kitchen table upstairs, the flash drive plugged into the laptop between them. The screen glowed softly, casting flickers of blue across their faces. Cassandra scrolled through files she hadn't dared open before. Internal audits, financial transfers, emails between Richard and several board members. But it was one video file that made her heart stop. She clicked play, a boardroom, grainy footage, her voice. "We need to talk about the Cayman accounts," she said on screen, eyes narrowed. "These numbers don't add up." Across from her sat Richard, his smile tight, his tone controlled. "You're overreacting, Cass. We can have the finance team." "No more stalling," her on-screen self said. "If I find out you're moving company funds into shell corporations, you'll be out by morning." The video ended there, abrupt, almost as if someone had cut it short. Cassandra leaned back, stunned. This was right before the crash. I was preparing to confront him. Liam looked at her. "You think he had something to do with it?" "I don't think," she said coldly. "I know." She scrolled to another file, marked Legal Draft, Wolff Corp Succession Plan. Her heart skipped. This is the original will, the real one. It names me as full executor. No provision for Richard to assume control. Liam exhaled. "So if you show this to the right people, I can take everything back, my name, my company, my life." Liam hesitated. "And you want to?" She turned toward him, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know." The flash drive sat between them, glowing like a loaded gun. Outside, the wind picked up, howling against the window panes. Cassandra Wolff was done hiding, but going back meant war, and the first shot had just been fired. The next morning, Cassandra sat at the edge of the bed with the flash drive in her palm, its weight feeling heavier than steel. The documents inside weren't just data. They were the key to an empire, her empire. Liam entered with 2 cups of coffee. "Did you sleep?" She shook her head. "Barely. I kept thinking about what it means. If I go back, I'm walking into a war zone." "Then don't go alone." She looked up. You'd come with me? Liam shrugged. I pulled you out of a fire once. I'm not going to let you walk into another without backup. Her throat tightened. You really are some kind of hero. He grinned. Don't let the oil stains fool you. They spent the morning sorting through the files on the drive, creating a folder labeled Red Evidence, the most damning materials. Several items stood out. Unauthorized money transfers to offshore accounts, correspondence between Richard and a law firm falsifying documents, and internal memos signed in Cassandra's name after her disappearance. Fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder. There was enough to destroy Richard, but there was something else. One document labeled simply Project Echo. Cassandra opened it expecting another spreadsheet. Instead, it was a high-level strategy paper about dismantling Wolf Corp's philanthropic division, her passion project. They were going to erase everything I built, she whispered. Her humanitarian programs, the Women in Tech initiatives, the green investment shifts. It was all set to be deconstructed under Richard's leadership. Liam placed a hand on her shoulder. They wanted you gone because you were changing the game. Because I was building something that mattered, she whispered. Exactly. She sat still, silent for a long time, then finally said the words neither of them had spoken aloud. I have to go back. Later that day, Cassandra drove out to a ridge overlooking Fairhaven, the same one her wreck had nearly cost her life. She stood at the edge, wind catching her hair, heart pounding with a storm of emotions. Liam stood beside her, arms crossed. You don't have to do it alone. I know, she said quietly, but I do have to do it. She reached into her coat and pulled out a photo, one they'd printed from the flash drive. It was of her at a company fundraiser, surrounded by staff, smiling. It felt like a different person. But now the pieces were connecting. The name Wolf didn't just belong to a billion-dollar company. It belonged to her. Memories returned in flashes, boardroom debates, firing corrupt executives, visiting tech schools. Her mother's voice tells her to lead with strength, but never lose compassion. I am Cassandra Wolf. And someone had tried to extinguish her like a liability. Not just Richard, the whole board. But they'd underestimated what fire does to steel. Back at the garage, Liam was making calls. He knew someone from his military days, a quiet investigator turned corporate security specialist. If anyone could help them reach the media safely and expose Richard, it was her. Cassandra re-entered the garage, her stance different now, taller, firmer. You okay? Liam asked. She gave a half smile. Number, but I'm ready. He nodded. Then let's make some noise. She glanced around the garage, the tools, the grease, the flickering light bulb overhead. I thought this place was the end of the road. Turns out it was the beginning. You rebuilt it here, he said. Stronger. She smiled. And now I'm going to take back what's mine. Not just for me, for everyone they tried to silence. At that moment, Cassandra Wolf wasn't just a woman recovering from trauma. She was a storm waiting to be unleashed. The next morning, Cassandra stared at herself in the mirror, wearing something she hadn't touched since before the crash. A tailored blazer Liam had found at a vintage boutique in town. It didn't quite match her old CEO wardrobe, but it brought her closer to the woman she used to be. And yet, the reflection felt like a stranger. The woman in the mirror was powerful, polished, precise. But Cassandra Wolf, the woman who'd risen from flames in a mechanic's arms, had changed. She didn't just want to run a company. She wanted to change it, fix what had been broken long before her crash. Behind her, Liam leaned against the doorway. "You don't have to rush back into that world, you know." She looked at him, conflict warring in her eyes. "I'm not sure who I am anymore. Cassandra Wolfe built an empire, but Jane learned how to breathe again." Liam walked over, placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You don't have to choose. Maybe you're both. Maybe that's the point." His words struck something deep in her, a permission she hadn't granted herself. For the first time, she smiled at her own reflection, not with confidence, but with peace. Still, returning to the corporate world meant more than walking into a boardroom. It meant facing the people who had tried to erase her. Betrayal ran deep, and it wasn't just Richard anymore. If others were involved, exposing them would paint a target on her back all over again. But she was done running. "I'm flying to New York tomorrow," she said to Liam, "alone." Liam looked hurt. "Why?" "Because this started with me. And if something goes wrong, I'm not letting you walk into danger without backup." "I'm not asking for permission," she said softly. "I'm asking for understanding." A heavy silence passed between them. Finally, Liam nodded. "Just promise me this time you come back." In a penthouse apartment overlooking the Manhattan skyline, Richard Wolfe poured himself a scotch, the amber liquid catching the last rays of sunlight. The room was filled with hush-toned voices and cigar smoke. 3 men from Wolfe Corp's board seated in leather chairs, staring at him with uneasy eyes. "You told us she was gone," one muttered. Richard's voice was calm, cold. "She was supposed to be. Well, she's not. And if that flash drive gets to the press, it won't." "You're sure?" The second board member snapped. "She's not a ghost. She's Cassandra Wolfe. If she walks into a courtroom, this entire house of cards crashes." Richard turned, staring out over the city. "If she shows up, we finish what we started." "A beat? You're talking about murder." "I'm talking about protecting everything we've built." Back in Fairhaven, Cassandra paced outside the garage under the porch light. She hadn't slept. Every shadow felt too long. Every car that passed was too slow. The calm had shifted, subtle but unnerving. That night she dreamt of fire again, but this time she wasn't trapped. She was walking through the flames, untouched. At the end stood Liam, holding out a hand. When she woke up, her heart was pounding. She was done hiding, but as the plane ticket burned a hole in her pocket and her enemies closed ranks, she knew one thing for certain. The next time someone came to finish the job, they'd find Cassandra Wolfe ready. The day before her flight, the garage was quiet. Cassandra sat in the office with the flash drive in her pocket and a growing weight in her chest. Outside, Liam was organizing his tools with methodical focus, pretending not to watch the window every few seconds. She stepped out, the floorboards creaking beneath her feet. "Can we talk?" Liam looked up. "Always." They sat on the back steps where the sun dipped behind the trees, casting long amber shadows. "I need to tell you everything," she said, voice trembling slightly, "before I go." He waited. "My name is Cassandra Wolfe, Chief Executive Officer of Wolfe Corporation. The crash wasn't an accident. My cousin Richard, he tried to kill me because I was going to expose him for embezzling funds, laundering money and rewriting my will to seize control. Liam didn't flinch. He just listened. I've been afraid to say it out loud because it makes it all real, like I'm inviting the danger back into my life. She took a breath. But you deserve the truth. You've protected me, helped me, without even knowing who I really was. Liam studied her face, quiet. You think I care about titles. I think you should, she said gently. I wasn't just rich, I was cold, ruthless sometimes. I built a company, but I lost pieces of myself doing it. He nodded slowly. So, what changed? You did, she said. This town, this life. I found something I didn't know I was missing. A long silence passed between them. Finally, Liam spoke. Doesn't matter if your name is Jane or Cassandra. You didn't ask for what happened. You fought to survive. That's what matters to me. She blinked hard. You mean that? I've known who you are from the moment you decided to stay and sweep floors instead of run. That was real. He reached for her hand, warm and solid. But if you're going back to finish this, you won't do it alone. She smiled, tears in her eyes. Thank you. Besides, he added, you still owe me a clean torque wrench. The night before Cassandra's flight, a storm rolled in, violent and sudden. Lightning cracked across the sky, and rain drummed the tin roof of the garage like machine gun fire. Cassandra couldn't sleep. She paced the small room upstairs, flash drive clutched in her hand, going over every possible scenario for tomorrow's return to the city. Liam had offered to go with her, but she insisted on handling the initial meeting alone, with the media and an independent investigator waiting. She needed to step into the spotlight on her own terms, but fate had other plans. Around 3 a.m., she heard something, not thunder, glass shattering. Her heart jumped. She rushed downstairs, barefoot, barely stopping to grab the old revolver Liam kept under the counter. In the workshop, shadows moved. A gloved hand snatched at the desk drawer where the flash drive had been kept before she moved it. A man in black turned toward her, his face covered. "Where is it?" he hissed. She raised the gun, hands shaking. "Leave, now." He advanced. A sudden crash, the side door flew open, and Liam tackled the man to the ground with a roar. Tools scattered. The two rolled, fists flying. Cassandra backed into the wall, gun still raised, trembling. The man pulled a knife. Liam blocked the strike, but hissed as the blade grazed his arm. Cassandra screamed, stepping forward. Bang! The gun fired. The man dropped with a grunt. The bullet lodged in his shoulder. Sirens howled in the distance. Liam must have hit the emergency alarm before the fight. The attacker looked up at her, snarling. "You should have stayed dead." Police stormed in seconds later. The man was cuffed, hauled away bleeding and cursing. Liam collapsed onto a stool, clutching his arm. Cassandra knelt beside him. "You're hurt." "I've had worse," he muttered. "Hell of a way to say goodbye." She laughed, tears mixing with rainwater. "I'm not saying goodbye," she said. "I'm saying I'll be back, with reinforcements." Cassandra stepped out of the black car onto the curb of Wolf Tower, a place she once ruled and now approached like a battlefield. Gone were the flannel shirts and small-town softness. She wore a dark gray power suit, tailored to perfection. Her hair, once singed and tangled, was tied in a sleek braid. The only thing soft was the necklace Liam gave her, his father's lucky wrench charm, hidden beneath her blouse. The building loomed tall, glass reflecting her past back at her. Cameras flashed from across the street, media waiting after a press leak. Cassandra Wolf returns from the dead. One headline read, "She walked through the front doors like a ghost-turned warrior." The security guards froze. "Miss Wolf," one stammered. "Step aside," she said. "I'm here to reclaim what's mine." In the lobby stood her lawyer and a team of forensic investigators. The flash drive was already duplicated and secured. Evidence would be presented to the board today, before Richard could manipulate another vote or silence another voice. Upstairs, Richard was pacing in his office when his assistant rushed in. "She's here." He froze. "What?" "She's alive, and she brought a legal team." For the first time, Richard Wolf's confidence cracked. "I want the board in the main conference room, now." The tension in the boardroom was thick enough to slice. 12 members sat around the glass table, whispering. Richard stood at the head, doing his best to control the narrative. "Let's remember, Ms. Wolf has been declared legally dead. The transition of power was conducted in accordance with that status." The doors opened. Cassandra walked in. Every head turned. Silence. "Status has changed," she said. She placed a folder on the table and opened it. "What I'm about to present is evidence of fraud, embezzlement, and attempted murder." Richard's face paled. "This is ridiculous." She handed each member a packet. The signatures on the will that named Richard my successor were forged. The accounts were traced to a dummy firm in Belize. He has laundered over $60 million. "Impossible," one board member muttered. "Verified," her lawyer said, "backed up by metadata, financial logs, and internal memos." One director turned to Richard. "You told us she was dead." "I thought she disappeared." "Because your people tried to kill me," Cassandra cut in. Murmurs erupted. A few board members stood and left, already making calls. "This isn't over," Richard growled. "You won't walk away clean." "I'm not walking away," Cassandra said, eyes blazing. "I'm taking everything back." Back in Fairhaven, Liam stood in the now quiet garage, wiping down the red Mustang he and Cassandra had worked on together. It gleamed under the fluorescent lights, but it felt lifeless. She was gone. Not permanently, but for now. He'd watched her board the flight with fire in her eyes, shoulders squared like a soldier marching to battle. He'd told her he'd wait. But waiting didn't make the silence easier. The town buzzed with news. First the attack, then the press storm surrounding her return. Liam had become a side character in a story bigger than anything he'd ever imagined. Reporters showed up asking for interviews. He turned them all down. He didn't need the spotlight. He just wanted her to come back whole. And yet, a part of him feared that once she reclaimed her world, there would be no room for the man who fixed cars and lived in a 2-room apartment above a dusty garage. That night, Liam stood under the stars alone, the wrench charm around his neck catching moonlight. "Be safe, Jane," he whispered, then corrected himself. "Be safe, Cassandra." The morning after the boardroom reckoning, Cassandra sat alone in her old office, the one Richard had claimed. The skyline spread before her like a kingdom she had once ruled. And now, again, it was hers. But the victory felt fragile. Her legal team confirmed the obvious. The fake will had allowed Richard to funnel millions out of Wolf Corp. Some of the board had been complicit, others ignorant. The rest were cowards. What she hadn't expected was a locked drawer in her desk. She recognized the key. It had been in the lining of her purse. She slipped it in and turned. Inside, a single manila folder. Private Sea Wolf eyes only. She opened it. Inside were letters, handwritten, dated, over years. From her mother. Cassandra's breath hitched. Her mother passed away nearly a decade ago. The letters weren't just personal, they were warnings. There are snakes in your bloodline, Cass. Your uncle, his son, they will smile at you with sharp teeth. Power comes with a price. Never let your company matter more than your soul. If you ever disappear, know that you are worth finding. She clutched the pages to her chest, tears welling. Her mother had known, she had seen it coming, but more importantly, she had believed in Cassandra, and now so did Cassandra. She scanned the final letter. At the bottom was a bank routing number. Her personal inheritance, $25 million, had been stored offshore, never touched. Her mother had secured it beyond the company's grasp. Cassandra had money, power, proof. She no longer had to play defense. The game had changed, and she was finally ready to strike back. 3 days later, Cassandra stood before a judge in a closed-door hearing with her legal team, the original flash drive in hand and the fraudulent documents displayed on a digital monitor. Richard sat across from her, pale, jaw tight, flanked by lawyers who were already whispering exit strategies. Her team laid it out with precision, metadata proving file tampering, matching emails that confirmed Richard had coordinated the falsification, and handwriting analysis revealing his signature on an altered version of her will. This wasn't a clerical error, her attorney said. It was a hostile takeover designed to eliminate Ms. Wolf. The judge's ruling was swift. All forged documents invalidated. Cassandra Wolf fully reinstated. A formal investigation into Richard's actions was launched. But it didn't end there. Cassandra leaned forward. Your Honor, I also request an injunction to freeze all personal assets tied to Richard Wolf pending criminal charges. Richard exploded. You vindictive... Save it, she cut in coldly. You stole years of my life. You will not steal another dollar. The judge banged the gavel. Request granted. Richard's empire collapsed in seconds. He was escorted out in cuffs, camera flashes catching every second as the news broke. Wolf family implosion. CEO returned from dead. Exposes cousin's conspiracy. Cassandra walked out of the courthouse, victorious, but the crowd of reporters didn't faze her. Her mind was already on the road, in a quiet garage in Fairhaven, and the man who hadn't asked her to win, only to survive. Fairhaven exploded overnight. Liam woke to dozens of missed calls, news vans parked across the street, and strangers filming TikToks in front of the garage. Mechanic who saved a billionaire was trending worldwide. Reporters shouted questions every time he stepped outside. Did you know who she was? Are you two in love? Will you be moving to Manhattan? He ignored them all, retreating inside the garage. The place had always been his haven. Quiet, familiar. Now it felt like a stage. The worst part? Cassandra hadn't called. She'd promised to return, but as the days passed, the silence grew louder. Then a letter arrived, handwritten, sealed in Wolf Corporation stationery. Liam, you gave me the strength to become Cassandra Wolf again. I couldn't have done this without you, but I'm no longer just Jane Doe. I carry a name that doesn't allow me to disappear. I'm not sure where I belong anymore. I need time. Thank you for saving me. Always C. Liam read it twice, then folded it and placed it in his back pocket. He knew she was alive. He knew she was safe. But that didn't stop the ache from settling in his chest. He'd pulled her from the fire, but maybe she was never meant to stay. 3 weeks later, Cassandra sat in her penthouse surrounded by the trappings of luxury. Glass sculptures, hand-woven rugs, million-dollar views, and none of it made her feel anything. The power had returned. Her name was clean. Her company was safe. But her soul felt lost. Her assistant knocked. "Ms. Wolfe, you have an event tonight, the Global Equity Gala." "I'm not going." "Ma'am, cancel everything for the week." She changed into jeans and a hoodie, grabbed her keys, and left without security. The drive back to Fairhaven felt longer this time, her mind replaying Liam's smile, his quiet patience, his strength. She had written him that letter to protect him from her world, but in doing so she'd left him in silence. When she reached the garage, it was locked. She walked around to the back where the garden had been overgrown slightly. Her heart pounded. She knocked. Liam opened the door, eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep, arms crossed. "Back from the kingdom?" She flinched. "I deserved that. You said you'd come back." "I was trying to figure out who I was without destroying you in the process." He stared at her. "I didn't need you to figure anything out. I needed you to trust me." A long pause. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I was scared." "So was I," he said quietly. "But I stayed." Her shoulders sagged. "Can I stay too?" He didn't answer right away. Then finally, "Come in, we've got oil to change." The next morning, Cassandra packed the last of her belongings in silence. The penthouse was immaculate, expensive, empty. She looked out at the skyline one last time, the view that once fueled her ambition, and saw something different now. Distance, isolation, a life built too high above the ground to feel real. Her driver arrived. She handed off the penthouse keys to her assistant. "Put it on the market. Use the proceeds to reopen our community school fund." The assistant's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" "I'm done living above the clouds." She took the stairs instead of the elevator. No fanfare, no security detail. Just Cassandra Wolfe, billionaire, survivor, woman in transition, heading toward a life she hadn't planned for but might finally belong to. As she stepped into the waiting car, her phone buzzed with a message from Liam. "Garage is quiet today. Engines waiting for a miracle. You in?" She smiled. "On my way." The car pulled away from the tower, leaving behind the skyline and everything it stood for. She wasn't giving up power. She was choosing a purpose. And this time, she wasn't looking back. Liam Carter had always lived a simple life. Tools in hand, problems he could solve with grit and time. But ever since Cassandra Wolfe stepped into it, simplicity had turned to chaos, headlines, and unexpected feelings. And now she was back. But this time, not as Jane Doe. She returned to Fairhaven with the same grace and steel that had defined her in the boardroom, but softened now, stripped of pretense. And most of all, she returned for him. Still, Liam wasn't sure how to navigate the shift. "Engine knocking a bit," he muttered one afternoon as they worked side by side. Pistons probably cracked. Cassandra glanced over. Can we fix it? He grinned. That's what we do. They fell into a rhythm again. Wrench, hand, tighten, test. The work required a few words, but the silences were easier now, comfortable instead of tense. But that didn't stop the whispers. Locals still murmured about the billionaire girl. Some questioned her motives. Others wondered if Liam was being used. Cassandra didn't blame them. Trust had to be earned. She did it quietly, volunteering at the food pantry, donating under anonymous names, helping kids fix their bikes in the garage lot. She never flaunted her wealth, she just showed up. One day, Liam found her in the back office, balancing the garage's books, surrounded by papers and receipts. "You're doing payroll now?" he asked. She looked up. "Just tightening things. Your margins are too tight and your parts distributor is overcharging you by 17%. I renegotiated the rate." He raised a brow. "And you call me a miracle worker?" She smiled. "You pulled me from a burning car. The least I can do is save your bank account." Liam leaned in, serious now. "You don't have to prove anything to me. Just being here, that's enough." She looked into his eyes and realized something important. He wasn't afraid of who she'd been. He just needed her to stay, and she wanted to. Not for the garage, not for redemption, but because Liam Carter was no longer just a town boy to her. He was home. The national press had been hounding her for weeks. CNN, Forbes, 60 Minutes. Everyone wanted the billionaire in disguise to tell her story. She said no to all of them. Until Whitney Reyes tonight. Whitney was a respected journalist known for her empathy and honesty. Cassandra trusted her. The interview aired live from Fairhaven, with cameras set up in the garage, after hours. Liam stood in the corner, off camera, arms crossed, quietly watching. Cassandra sat across from Whitney, calm and composed. Whitney began gently. "Cassandra Wolfe, missing, nearly killed, found by a stranger. How did you survive?" Cassandra smiled faintly. "By becoming someone else. Someone simpler, someone real." She told the story, the crash, the fire, the amnesia, the garage. But she didn't dwell on tragedy. She spoke of resilience, of rediscovery, and of Liam. "He didn't know who I was," she said, "and he didn't care. He treated me like a person worth saving, even when I couldn't remember my own name." Whitney smiled. "And now?" "I remember everything," Cassandra said. "And I still believe the best part of me started in that garage." The audience was silent, moved. Liam watched from the shadows, pride in his eyes. After the cameras stopped, Whitney shook his hand. "You're the real story." He shook his head. "She is." But Cassandra disagreed. They both were. Together. It started with a truck. Not flashy, not new, just reliable. Liam found it parked outside the garage one morning, a bow on the hood and a note that read, "For the next emergency rescue." See. He chuckled. She really doesn't know how to do small things. But the truck wasn't the only surprise. That afternoon, Cassandra returned wearing overalls and carrying a blueprint. "We're expanding." Liam blinked. "We?" She unfurled the paper, an attached training wing for youth mechanics, complete with a classroom, lift bays, and a scholarship program. "I used to invest in innovation," she said. Now I want to invest in people." Liam looked overwhelmed. "Cass, this is huge. Fairhaven kids deserve more than textbooks and broken dreams." She was passionate, electric, and radiant, and Liam realized something. This was her, fully integrated. Cassandra Wolfe and Jane Doe, fused into something stronger. They started building immediately. Locals joined. Volunteers came in droves. News stories followed, but this time the headlines read, "Garage turns classroom, Wolf legacy goes small town." Liam looked around at the construction one evening and said, "You really think we can pull this off?" Cassandra grinned. "We pulled me out of a burning car. This'll be easy." 3 months later, on a cool autumn evening, the expansion was complete. A celebration was held in the garage lot. Bonfires, food trucks, and a live band that played Too Loud and Too Late. Cassandra danced barefoot. Liam watched from the edge of the crowd, heart full. He didn't know what tomorrow held, but tonight everything felt right. Then, just as the fireworks faded, Cassandra stepped onto a crate and called for quiet. Liam frowned. "What is she?" She cleared her throat. "I have something to say." People turned, curious. "I came to this town with no name, no past, and no future," she said. "I found all three in a mechanic's garage." The crowd murmured affectionately. She stepped down, walked straight to Liam, pulled a ring from her pocket, and got down on one knee. Liam's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" Cassandra grinned. "I was a billionaire CEO. I'm used to doing the hiring." The crowd laughed. Liam stepped forward, knelt beside her. "Then let's do this right." He pulled out his own ring, small, silver, hidden in his wallet for weeks. Cassandra's eyes welled. They exchanged rings, laughter, and promises. Not a fairy tale. Something better, something real. Married life in Fairhaven didn't come with luxury cars or penthouse views. It came with grease stains, morning coffees, and shared responsibilities. Cassandra loved every second. They turned the garage into a full-fledged training academy. Teens from struggling families came in after school, learning how to fix engines, balance budgets, and plan futures. Cassandra taught business classes. Liam taught the rest. They named it the Carter Wolf Garage Institute. Meanwhile, Wolf Corp continued to grow. Under new leadership and new principles, Cassandra remained involved, but remotely. Her days of boardroom battles were over. She'd found her war, and she'd already won it. One evening she stood in the shop with Liam, watching the sun set behind the building. "You think it'll last?" she asked. "This?" Liam smiled. It was built too. The red Mustang they'd once rebuilt together gleamed under the lights, symbolic of everything they'd gone through. They had been forged in fire and rebuilt by choice, together. The early mornings in Fairhaven had changed. Instead of alarm clocks echoing across a cold penthouse, Cassandra now woke to birdsong, the rumble of delivery trucks, and Liam humming as he opened the garage below. It was peaceful, predictable, but never dull. She had learned to embrace the rhythm of rural life, schedules shaped by seasons, not shareholders. She'd traded glass walls for dirt paths, executive summaries for lesson plans. And for the first time, she wasn't running anything. She was living something. The Carter Wolf Garage Institute had quickly gained recognition. National education boards visited. Industry leaders sent donations. Apprenticeship programs blossomed. More than a vocational school, it had become a beacon for second chances. And Cassandra knew second chances better than most. Still, she hadn't abandoned Wolf Corp entirely. She worked part-time as chair emeritus, focusing on philanthropy. She had appointed a trusted CEO, someone who didn't crave headlines, and implemented reforms that kept the business clean. But when given a choice between board meetings and mentoring a 16-year-old who just rebuilt his first carburetor, she picked the carburetor every time. One day, Liam found her under a truck, elbow deep in a busted suspension. "You know," he said, "I've seen Fortune 500 execs cry over less grease." She wiped her forehead, grinning. "This is what real power feels like." Liam smiled back. "You're the only woman I know who could run a billion-dollar company and fix a diesel in the same afternoon." They laughed together, no cameras, no scripts, just joy. And beneath the laughter lived something deeper, peace. They had built this life from the wreckage, and they had no intention of slowing down. It was a crisp morning when Cassandra received the subpoena. The trial of Richard Wolf, former acting CEO of Wolf Corp, charged with fraud, corporate theft, and conspiracy to commit murder, was finally underway. And Cassandra was the star witness. She hadn't seen her cousin since the day he was arrested. Liam offered to go with her. "You sure you want to face him?" "I need to," she said, "for closure." The courthouse in Manhattan felt like a memory she had outgrown. Marble floors, stiff suits, sharp glances. But Cassandra walked in with her chin high and her hands steady. The courtroom buzzed as she took the stand. The prosecutor asked the usual questions. Cassandra answered clearly, precisely. She laid out Richard's deception, the altered will, the stolen funds, the attempted murder disguised as an accident. Then came cross-examination. Richard's defense team tried to paint her as unstable, emotionally compromised from the trauma. "Miss Wolf, wouldn't you say your memory loss made you an unreliable narrator?" She looked the lawyer in the eye. "It made me free." A ripple of surprise went through the gallery. "You see," she continued, "I lost my name, my money, my world. And when I found myself again, I realized I'd never really lived before. I'm not the victim here. I'm the proof that healing is possible, even after fire." The jury was visibly moved. When Richard took the stand, he was arrogant, smug, blaming others. It didn't work. He was found guilty on all charges, sentenced to 25 years. Cassandra left the courthouse not in tears, not in triumph, but in peace. She had faced her past and walked away stronger. Back in Fairhaven, life didn't slow down. After the trial, Cassandra returned home to find a surprise. The garage team had finished the final bay of the training center, complete with chrome-finished lifts and a digital diagnostics lab. But it was what Liam had hidden in the back that took her breath away. A small side building, modest, still smelling of fresh paint. He handed her the keys. "What is this?" "Our next chapter," he said. Inside, the walls were lined with blueprints and sketches. Liam's dream had never just been about fixing cars. It was about building futures. "This will be the first Carter Wolf franchise," he explained. "Community-run garages in small towns across the country. Vocational training, outreach, even mobile units for rural repairs." Cassandra blinked, overwhelmed. "You did all this without telling me," he laughed. I figured you might enjoy being surprised for once." She hugged him tightly. "I love it." Together they began planning expansion, intelligently, sustainably, with heart. And it wasn't just about business. It was about purpose, about creating something bigger than either of them had ever dreamed, about proving that two people, one poor, one powerful, could build a legacy born not from wealth, but from fire and faith. One evening, just before closing, a call came in. "There's been an accident," the voice on the line said. "A woman trapped. No one nearby can reach her fast enough." Liam looked at Cassandra. She grabbed the keys to the truck. They reached the site in 10 minutes, just outside of town, where the road curved dangerously near the cliffs. A car lay sideways in a ditch, smoke curling from the hood. The driver was a young mother, panicked, bleeding, trapped. Cassandra climbed down first. Liam handed her tools and broke the passenger window while Cassandra calmed the woman. "You're okay. We've got you." Minutes later, with sirens approaching, Cassandra pulled the woman out. Liam lifted her to safety. They stood together, breathless, watching the wreck. "You realize," he said, "you just became me." Cassandra smiled, hands trembling. "Feels right." The woman clutched Cassandra's wrist. "Thank you. You saved me." Cassandra just nodded. "Someone once did the same for me." Later that night, under the stars, Cassandra sat beside Liam on the garage roof. "Do you ever wonder why all this happened?" she asked. "Nope," he said, pulling her close. "Some things don't need answers. They just need gratitude." 1 year later, the wedding took place in Fairhaven's town square. No red carpets, no security teams, just laughter, lanterns, and love. Cassandra walked down the aisle in a simple lace dress, her hair in soft waves, her eyes shining brighter than diamonds. Liam wore a navy shirt and jeans, refusing to pretend he was someone else. As they exchanged vows, the whole town watched. Those who had helped them rebuild, those they had taught, those whose lives they had quietly changed. "I found you on fire," she said. "And I stayed to build the rest," he replied. They kissed to the sound of cheers, of music, of children dancing barefoot in the grass. That night, as stars blanketed the sky, Cassandra sat alone for a moment beneath a tree. She looked around at the place she had once washed up in, lost, broken, nameless. Now it was home. Liam found her and slipped his hand into hers. "Think we'll ever get bored?" She shook her head. "Not as long as there are engines to fix and people to save." And in the stillness, she understood. Love doesn't always come easy, but when it's forged in fire, it lasts forever.